Enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company.
Welcome to And Good Company. I'm Sarah Fiedelholtz. We all know a great dinner party isn't really about the food. It's about the people seated around the table engaging in lively discussions. And Good Company gives you a seat at the table to enjoy smart and interesting conversations as they happen. I am pleased to be in the company of Barbara Bradley Baekgaard, the co-founder of VERA Bradley and the creator of the Bradley Hotel. Welcome.
Thank you.
So everybody knows you, obviously, and you're, a Fortitude Foundation in Fort Wayne. But I wanted to sort of take a little bit back a little bit, and I want to talk about your mother is who the company is named after, VERA Bradley. But I really wanted to talk to you a little bit about the influence of your mother in your life and what she meant and represented to you.
My mother was really my strongest influence, and my father was too. He was a very strong man, a very wonderful man. My mother was from St. Louis, Missouri. She was in high school working at Elizabeth Arden makeup counter, and Elizabeth Arden, the woman, saw her. She was beautiful. I might say I looked just like my dad, so I always have to say that, because my mother had olive skin, dark hair. My father was Irish. I'm the Irish side. And Elizabeth Arden saw her and brought her to New York. So she dropped out of high school. My mother never graduated from high school. And she moved to New York, and Elizabeth Arden, as she would say, taught her everything from fashion to makeup to just everything. She was, I think Mother was very aware that she didn't have that education. So you never ever received a note from her that wasn't perfectly written, perfect grammar. I never heard her use a word that wasn't appropriate. And she had a great sense of humor too. So she didn't take herself too seriously, although she was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And she met my dad actually when she was working for Elizabeth Arden. He was a salesman. He spotted her too. And they got married and had 6 children. Mm-hmm. She was married pretty late for her generation because she was born in '09. Mm-hmm. So she was married when she was 28 years old. That's pretty late. And my father was 10 years older. So she just did everything right. I mean, she dressed beautifully. Her eye for interior design was amazing. Growing up in her home with her look, and all of my siblings have that same talent. I would say that they kind of get it. I divide the whole world and you get it or you don't get it. Like food, I don't get it. Mm-hmm. I'm first to say, I just don't get it. Mm-hmm. But we have an eye. I mean, I cannot draw a stick person. I don't have that talent, but I have a good eye. I'm a tweaker, right? Put it that way. So, but she was just everything to me. She was an amazing person.
And she really gave you a tremendous foundation, not only for your eye and talents for color and design, but also how you treat people. Talk about how she approached your family and you with your brother, Jamie.
Yes. So we were living in Winnetka, Illinois. I was born in Chicago. And my brother was the third of 6 children. And when Jamie was born back in that day, they didn't have handicap parking and all that. There was nothing, shout out to people, disabled people. So my dad decided to move us to Florida because he knew living in Chicago. Oh, I might go back and say, back then, she had to almost fight to keep him home. So many people.
He had a very bad cerebral palsy, right?
Extreme. He never spoke a word. Right. He never walked. He never talked. He never. But even the church came to her and said, you must put him in an institution. She refused to do that. So knowing that, again, like I say, no handicap, nothing like that, she'd be driving him around and all that. So anyway, my dad picked us all up and moved us to Miami Beach. Bay Drive.
Right. That's where we developed a connection. That's where my family grew up. That's when my parents first moved to Miami Beach. That's where they live, Bay Drive.
You don't meet
further
me.
down. You lived on the water. We lived on the other side. Yeah.
All right. So they moved us there, and then went on to have 3 more children.
Right.
And so Jamie lived. He died when he was 17 years old.
But your mother really talked about the idea that you didn't hide him away.
No, oh
he
my
wasn't
God, no.
put in a room. I mean, she really created like a swing and had it that he was really part of the family and encouraged you and your friends to have
Go
him
upstairs
involved.
and talk. You'd come home from a date or something, and she'd come in and you're sitting there downstairs. And she said, well, go up and talk in Jamie's room, make him feel a part of it. And yes, he was a big part of our life. The swing concept, instead of having a bed in the family room or the Florida room.
Right. You know what a Florida room is.
So they had my mother had a twin mattress. I have one in my home now. A lot of us have it as a duplicate, a little nod to Jamie. And so he'd be on the swing, which meant the other children would be on the swing too. And we were very, very proud of him, very proud of him. I remember coming home with friends in college, because again, I went to college in New York. Everyone wanted to come home with me, right? Right. They didn't go home with the Detroit girls.
They wanted to go to Miami Beach, especially spring break and winter. Sure.
I had more friends around spring break.
Right.
And I can remember the girls in college, who are still some of my friends today, sitting on Jamie's bed and talking.
Right.
Yeah, he was, and my mother played golf, entertained, worked in charity. I mean, it wasn't like the total focus.
Right. But she made him, but I think that also gave you a really great foundation for a lot of who you are and what you believe. And so
absolutely.
I was reading your book, A Colorful Way of Living, and I have to tell you that what struck me of so interest about you was that, so you have 4 children and 12 grandchildren.
Yeah.
But what I loved was that in the book, in your acknowledgments, when you thanked your children, you thanked them not just, oh, thanks to my 4 kids, you thanked them for who they are. So you said Joni gave you perspective, fun, and adventure. Amy, getting it done, always there when you needed her. Tommy has an incredible sense of humor, style, and taste. Jimmy, optimism for being my glass full kid.
Yes,
and then you gave credit, where credit is due. So you even thanked your college, Marymount, for lasting friendships. Yeah. You thanked your camp, Weehawken, for teaching you the meaning of team spirit. Now remember, this book was written in 2017. And then I love this, you thanked Fort Wayne for the support in every step of the way. You thanked New York for its energy and inspiration. And you thanked the genius who invented the dimmer switch. So I want to tell you that person is Joel Spira.
Oh!
And in the late 1950s, he was aiming for mood lighting. He had a company called Lutron, and he invented it as the light dimmer switch. And he has been known, for the past 50 years as one of the energy efficiency pioneers. Now, I always thank Willis Carrier, who invented air conditioning. But I love what I felt that this showed was really who you are and what, like, you really walk the walk and talk the talk. And really what struck me was how you really recognize and appreciate what experiences and what your children give and do. And I just really, I just thought that was so great.
Some people probably don't even read the credits.
I always read. No, I will tell you, I always read the acknowledgments.
At the end of the movie.
You stay for the credits.
I always stay for the credits. Sometimes I'm the last one in the theater.
Yeah.
But I just not so much giving credit where credit's due, it's more, I'm just curious.
Right. And also what you see is how so many people worked on it, and that there's so many people who you don't know what they do. Like, I always love looking at the job titles, because I always just like, what does a boy gaffer do, and all these crazy titles.
Well, and I think like starting a business or a family or whatever, you've been on every rung of the ladder. So you do appreciate You
Right.
appreciate it almost more
Right.
than when you get to the top, and then, okay, now what else?
But tell the story that is really fundamental, I think, to a lot of who you are and how you treat people, about the CEO of Charles Schwab when he was in business school. Do you remember Walter Bettinger?
Yes, and let me remember what his quote. Oh, no, wait a minute.
About the business,
I love that story.
So
That's
tell
right.
that story.
Oh yeah, I remember that. He was in business school and he was taking his exam for business school, I believe. And one of the questions was, what is the name of the housekeeper?
The person who cleans the building.
Yes. And he didn't have the
He
answer.
failed. He failed the exam.
Yeah, he
Yes.
failed. And I just love that. I put that in my book because I think so often, I can remember even saying to my grandchildren, you know, if you treat the owner of the restaurant any differently than you treat the waiter, then there's an issue there.
Right.
And I think this was a great example of that, because the people that do things for you, I'm going through that with the hotel right now. I mean, the head of housekeeping and the valets and all, they're just wonderful people. They're the one who makes it
That's right.
work.
Because it's, I mean, by the way, the woman's name was Dottie.
Yeah, Dottie, that's
but
right.
You're absolutely
That's
right, because it's those people who make the experience. I mean, yes, when people come into the Bradley, they're going to think, oh, this is beautiful, and it smells great. Because I know that each of the hotels, they created an individual scent. And everybody's going to think, oh, this is beautiful, this is lovely. But what they're going to remember is how they were treated. And that's like Maya Angelou says, people may not remember what you say, but they're going to remember how you made them feel.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think that is, and especially with customers in the area of service. And, you know, a lot of people don't think about, they don't see the people who make their beds or clean the bathrooms, you know, in their hotel rooms.
Well, you know, even on a tipping, this is very interesting you said that, because the people that we tip often, like you tip the valet, you tip the person that brings you up, he carries your suitcase. I'm not talking about my hotel, I'm talking about any hotel. He brings up your suitcase and you tip him. The least tipped people are the housekeepers. People check out and don't leave anything in the room. Now, these women or men, they deserve a tip. But it's not a standard, you know, people just don't think of that. They leave the room and they kind of forget because they don't see them in person.
Right. But that also, so I mean, that is sort of your tenets of pay attention, and also this whole idea of being kind. And so the idea, talk about how, with this idea of how people treat people, when you were interviewing somebody either for the hotel or for Vera Bradley, talk about what you did and who you asked about them.
Yeah. Well, what I would usually do, because by the time, I would say by the time they reach me, we know they can type. You know? Right. I mean, they've been through all so then I would be one of the last people. They're going to be nice to me, right? I mean, so then I would go back and ask the receptionist, or if I have my assistant. In the case of when we created our board, when we went public, I would have someone drive them to the airport and just get a little, what were they like, you know? Well, I don't know, he really didn't speak to me, he got on his phone, and then, or somebody else would come in, oh, he was so nice, he asked if I had kids, and I'm like, yes, okay. Because we were building a culture here, and we have a great culture at Vera Bradley. We truly do. The people that work in our stores, in our outlets, in our shipping. I had a very interesting incident. A woman called me from one of the hospitals one time, called me personally, I didn't know her. I don't know if she was a nurse or admin, I don't know. And she said, I just have to tell you something. She said, every single time somebody comes in for whether mammogram, blah, 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 they are the nicest. They will leave and we'll say, aren't they nice? She said, we just had a woman come in who was not nice, was not, she was rude. And I'm like, who was this woman? And sure enough, she didn't fit our culture. She was very smart. She was just in the wrong sorority. And she did not last, but she stood out as just not being the right person to work with us.
Well, So so for a publication that I'm launching called Hub 260, one of the cover stories that I'm doing is Made at Vera Bradley. And so I have actually begun to interview women and men who actually started at Vera Bradley and have gone on to do great things in our community. And so those women include Catherine Hill, Melissa Schenkel. So Catherine Hill's at PNC, Melissa Schenkel at Star Financial, Brenda Gerber-Vincent, who's at GFW, Kate Virag, who just left the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership, and Leslie Hill from the Women's Economic Development
Great
Center.
women.
And I also talked with Stephanie Scheel, who is your Chief People Officer. And one of the things that they all said to you was about the importance of being kind. Talk about that.
Well, I think it's easy here in the Midwest. You know, when I worked with Provenance on setting up the staff for the hotel, I said, this is going to be easy because people in Fort Wayne are kind. I mean, don't you think it's a Midwest? I think the people.
I think people are, okay, I think some people are kind, like you said, to those that are in front or important. I think that some aren't. I think that as someone who moved here, I think people are kind to their own group, but they're not as welcoming and kind to other people.
Okay, I did experience that a little when we first moved to Fort Wayne, 1975.
Right.
And we bought a home in Wildwood Park that was owned by an auto dealer who was kind of a big deal, and they belonged to Fort Wayne Country Club, blah, 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 blah. And I remember coming home from a party, we moved from Chicago, and saying to my husband, I am not going to apologize for not being born and raised in Fort Wayne.
Exactly,
Is
right.
that what you're talking
yes,
about?
There is a sense, because it's like one of the first two questions.
Okay, now maybe I've forgotten about that.
No, but people ask you, they always say, what church do you go to?
Oh,
and where did you go to high school? And so to me, that's both very off-putting because
like,
one, I don't go to church, and two, I didn't go to high school here. So, I mean, you talk about being kind, but the idea of kind.
Kind is different to me. Kind is just, I don't know, just treating people like you want to be treated. I mean, it's so simple.
Right.
You know, my husband, Pierre Baekgaard, who is a Dane and a very kind person, the Danes are amazing, and he used to say, you don't even need the 10 Commandments. You need one rule. Treat everyone like you want to be treated. He said the golden rule. Period.
Right. Well, I think if we had the golden rule and the 10 Commandments, we would there wouldn't be all these issues in our country, the political divide. So I would say that he was right. Just bring back the 10
them both. Mix them up.
But you really, and you really value the people because, you know, when I was talking to some people at Vera Bradley about wanting to do this story about women made at Vera Bradley, her concern was, well, are you saying that people don't stay there? And I was saying no.
See, I never even thought
what
that.
I was saying was how you attracted and brought talent, and then for whatever reason, you know, they wanted to move on. That you sort of brought that talent, and then they go out into the world with what they've learned at Vera Bradley. It's sort of like they share it, you know. It's like they take
and they leave with a hug. Sarah, I'm not kidding you. I have never said to somebody, "Why are you leaving?"
No.
I mean, we do the exit interview, of course. But a young man just this week announced he's leaving, but he's moving to New York. And I'm like, how exciting!
Right.
You know, I'll see.
But you also are preparing them in ways and giving them what I think are those emotional quotient, you know, EQ skills. But even in the book, again, going back to your acknowledgments, you thank your working family both present and past.
Yeah,
so you really right. So
I don't know if I mentioned in the book, but it stopped during COVID. But I had the I call it the old bags dinner, and have back to my home for an evening at home. The people that literally, one of the women is 90 years old now, Donna Bandor, and bring back the people who really built the company. And they truly are. And Kim Colby, who I just was with her in Montana last week, her daughter is my granddaughter's maid of honor, and I mean, we're like all together. It is a family, It really is
Right.
truly a family.
And when people think about, obviously Vera Bradley and your success, I mean, the company was started, it's going to be 40 years old in 2022. But there's some things that I think that aren't often discussed about your co-founding of Vera Bradley and your background that I sort of wanted to point out, is a lot of, talk about how when you and Pat were sitting in the airport, but it was based on your knowledge and experiences of travel, and talk about, you knew that there were other companies in the business. So talk about how it's not like you really, you had some grounding of experience and to really start. So talk about that and how that's important when you're sort of, I mean, you can have an idea, but you do need to have some sort of sense of understanding about it, right?
I truly think it was purely visual. I mean, we're sitting in the Atlanta airport. Now, again, growing up in Miami, I was aware of Pierre Dieu, that was very French.
Yes.
Laura Ashley,
Right.
very British.
Right, and then we talked about Lily Pulitzer, which was very Palm Beach.
Oh, right. So
and very expensive.
Very, and my girls weren't any of those. They were J. Crew girls, let's put it that way. And it's like, okay, this stuff is all really neat. I didn't see any of it in the airport. I saw all black luggage. And then we're like, oh, wait a minute, why isn't there something, more for us, more for my Joni and Amy, one at Marymount in Tarrytown, New York, one at Michigan State. And honest to God, we didn't give it any more thought than that. We went home literally the next day, went to Joann Fabric. I mean, talk about not having a business plan.
Right.
But it just...
Okay, but you did have experience having a business, because the two of you, I mean, you had a company called Paper Dolls, which was the wall hanging. And then when Pat, that's how you met Pat, you were actually, she came over to say hello.
Yeah, I was hanging wallpaper.
Right. And then you created another wallpaper company together, right? And then that was called?
Up Your Wall.
Up Your Wall. I really liked
the other better.
Well Hung. I thought that was a fabulous name, but
it was. I should have licensed that.
Yes, you should.
Because the paper hanger at the hotel now, it was so funny. He got such a kick out of that. It's like, oh my gosh, did you ever license that? I said, no, you may have it.
Right. But so you took some of that kind of knowledge base and knew that those types of bags were popular in certain markets, or like Laura Ashley was very big and Pierre Dieu in the coasts, and and so you sort of then put your spin on it.
I liked color, and I liked again, going back to my mother, the world that she lived in, which was very, people come to Florida. There's no middle class in Florida, let's just put it that way, don't you think?
Especially at the time, yeah.
Yes, at that time.
Right.
But so my mother's friends all had interior designers, and they'd fly down from the north, and I never had an interior designer from the day I was born to the day I'll die. But her house was the best. I mean, her house looked better than anyone else's. They'd walk in and say, oh, who did your dining room? Okay, and that's how we were,
right.
That's how.
So you had that talent.
Yeah, so I had a feeling
right.
of, I liked color, I
right.
liked originality. I did sew. I had a home ec minor in college, believe it or not. Probably doesn't exist anymore. So I made my children's clothes
right.
when they were little. Of course, I had 4 kids in 5 years. I couldn't afford not to make their
right.
clothes. I don't know, it just was very, when we first talked about what to name the book, it was so easy. I said, why don't we name it Duh?
Well, okay, so another duh was that you were solving a personal problem.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because you wanted pretty luggage, and even today, when you think about, so that, you were solving that you wanted something, and for your girls, and even with the Bradley Hotel, your impetus for that was you wanted somewhere for your guests to stay, so that, because, sometimes they say guests at home are like fish. Fresh fish. They're good for 3 days. Then,
exactly.
But you wanted to create a place that was an extension of your home. So the idea also, so you had some knowledge, you were solving a problem, right?
I love to solve a problem.
Okay.
In fact, I don't like to sit around and plan. Even board meetings, I call them BORED meetings, because just tell me what to do and I'll do it, but
Right.
let's not talk for 4 hours
Right.
about what we're going to do. A perfect example would be the masks. We could not have sat around 2 years ago and said, I have an idea. I know what we'll sell $50 million of, masks in there. No, you have to be ready to get onto something without a focus study and all this. Now, being public, it's a whole different thing, so don't get me started. But you have to remain fluid, and you have to. So with the idea of Vera Bradley, we just went home and started it. You know, went to Joann Fabric, went to the basement, cut some fabric out, sent them up to my girls. The girls are saying, Mom, everybody loves it. I swear it was started in the Kappa House of Michigan State because Joni would call home and say,
They all want
they all
bags.
want these.
And you also, and the other thing is, you got help. I mean,
Oh.
you got, although it's sort of ironic, but that your husband's, yours and Pat, gave you each, $500, and your friend,
No, 500 together.
500 together, right? And
It
then,
was not easy. I had to beg for $250 because, yes.
right, and then,
was a load.
and then you also got your friends to support you.
Yes. Yeah.
So you did, so it's also so for people to understand that there are people who help you and can give you that leg up and, but I wanted to ask you, you mentioned about when Vera Bradley went public. And so one of the things I'm wondering about is now that it is public and it is so much larger, and you, Pat stepped away quite a while ago, and obviously your role is still, you're there, but there's a CEO and running, and now obviously you're focusing on the Bradley, and you created this culture company. Are you concerned that, and as they get further and further away from knowing who Vera Bradley was and knowing you and Pat and knowing the culture that you created, that the company will change? Or is that a good thing, that maybe it changes and gets a more fresh, modern approach, but not losing what you created? Talk about that.
Actually, I addressed the company yesterday, and it was kind of like a comedy show, actually, because I don't get too serious when I'm addressing them, because I want to keep, one thing, it was very funny. One time I was speaking, and I said, let's keep the F in fun, meaning, because we have all these, and it came out the F in fun, so I've been quoted many times on that line. So yesterday, after a lot of serious numbers, and I did get up, and probably to anyone else it might have sounded like I'm losing it, but it's bringing back the fun and the I love nepotism. I gave 2 awards to 2 women yesterday who'd been there 35 years. But what a lot of the people didn't know, their mother, her mother-in-law and the mother, had worked there before they did. Nepotism is the best thing in the world. I have family members I wouldn't hire, but I've had at one time like 10 and 12 family members in some way involved. One of my sons-in-law was CEO. My son-in-law right now, another son-in-law, is chairman of the board.
Right?
I have, it goes on and on. I could name them and name them. And I love that. If they have the talent, if they can do it, if they're prepared for it, who could you have better than, or my college roommates, Mary Sloan,
Right.
who of course died of breast cancer. She was one of my first reps. And Glenna Reno, who is my dearest friend today, she was a rep. And Marianne Gray from Lake Gage, they're the best. They are the very best. Yeah.
But the fact that, does it concern you though?
Yeah, it does concern me because you can't get, at one time.
You interviewed everybody at one time, because the women told me that you interviewed everybody before they got hired.
Oh, absolutely.
And now, that's...
Well, you couldn't. And another funny thing that happened, I was speaking years ago, probably 35 years ago, to a group, and they said, do you know all your employees? I said, oh my God, I know my employees. I'm sure I know their spouse's name. Give me a minute, I bet I could name their dog. Okay, now fast forward like 30 years, someone in an audience of about 1,000 people stands up with questions and says, I understand you know the name of every employee. I said, are you kidding me? We have 3,000 employees. No, you lose that. You lose that. There's no doubt about it. You can't keep it.
Right, but so do you think that as the company moves forward, and obviously, you're in your 80s, and so, you know, there's going to be a time where, I don't know, it's going to be a long time because you're very active, but where you're not going to be there, and that understanding of who Vera Bradley was and what you and Pat started. And is that good or bad? Because a good thing you could say is, well, look what's come out of that new talent, which is the development of good market.
Oh, yeah.
But when you are also now a public company and you've got to make numbers, and like you said yesterday, you spent a lot of time talking about the numbers because you've got to, it's quarterly earnings. Does that concern you? And what do you think about that?
Well, I think it will remain the heritage of the company, hopefully, like, I don't know, I'm just hoping, because there are enough people, you know, there's a Chinese adage that I love. It says, if you want to know what kind of a parent you were, look at your grandchildren. It's my favorite. First of all, it's my favorite because I have great-grandchildren. But I think it's the same thing. I think, so we were the parents, Pat and I were the parents of this company. And hopefully the next generation will live by those. And they know what's meaning. You know, you take Nordstrom, for example. They still have a great reputation. And I think it can go on. It's harder because it's just bigger. I mean, what can you say?
But does it give you hope when you saw that they came and said, we want to create good market? Because the idea of what they wanted
I'm a huge fan of Harry Cunningham.
Yeah, I interviewed him and married Beth.
I mean, he's like my fifth child. You know, no, I adore him. And he is so talented, so talented. And when we work together, and he's collaborative, you know, he's amazing. And I think when we bring in people like Harry, Mary Beth, people like that, they'll keep it going because that's who they are. They're not faking it. They're the real deal. He's a Floridian too.
Yes, you know? yeah. Maybe there's something in the water out there. So. I went to the sea air. It was the ocean, right?
Maybe so. The humidity.
But I also think that there's something very interesting because a lot of people would think that because you are so interested in the exterior, how things look, the appearance of things, presentation, that you might be a little bit surfacey, superficial, but you also are very interested in the interior, like what matters on the inside. And so can you talk about that and how that you sort of balance that in your own life and in your experiences?
You mean the inside of a person or the company?
No, the inside of a person or the company.
Yeah, well, I'm very interested in the inside of the person. I mean, when no, I really do. When I say I used to know everyone's spouse and dog and everything else, I mean, go back to the hotel. There was a couple checking in. They had a little dog with them. We're dog friendly. I would not have built a hotel that wasn't pet friendly.
Well, because so let's take a pause and talk about the hotel.
Okay.
You built a hotel that was like your home. Right. And even though your home would probably, I could imagine, is very beautiful and very
cozy,
but it's very livable. Like people don't
exactly.
Like people don't go in your house and worrying when you have a glass. Can I put this down?
Oh my God, no. Yeah. And bring your dog.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk about how that translated. Well, let's take a step back. Let's talk about how the Bradley started, because some people would be surprised that it wasn't like this was something you really wanted and you went after it. So, you know, because it wasn't like a hotel, the Provence hotels came to you and said, Barbara, let's do a hotel.
A hotel.
Talk about that.
Okay, I'm going to go back a little further.
Okay.
When something is needed, I try to, let's go back to Mary Sloan, for example. So she dies at age 50 of breast cancer. What can we do to make some good of that devastating thing? And look what's happened $39 million later.
Right.
We did it. Okay, my husband died of Alzheimer's. When he was sick, I had many people help, everyone. I could go to work every day, know he was cared for, stayed at home, all of that. After he died, I felt, what would I have done if I hadn't had my family, my means? Where would he have been? So I looked around Fort Wayne, and there just wasn't a place that I would have felt. Right. So what did I do? I built Birchwood, which is a day-away center for people with dementia. And again, I didn't set out in my life to build a day away. But we have day away for children, but we didn't have a day away for people like where you could drop them at 7 in the morning, pick them up at 7.
So it was also an idea to give caretakers, right? Because most of the caretakers, the
Oh.
majority of caretakers do not have the ability to hire
That was
right.
the exact reason I did that. I was very fortunate. And then I wanted it to be, again, go back to the looks. I didn't want it to look institutional. I wanted it, you walk in, there's wallpaper, there's pictures, there's a beautiful painting of a dog over the mantel, and I've had several of the people there say, that's my dog. Okay. I had one gentleman say first time he had ever left his wife and gone to work and felt good about it because she's in a pretty environment. Not, even if they might not notice it or care, the people who leave them there care. It's like leaving them at my home as opposed to leaving them in an institute. Mm-hmm. Okay, so check, done. Okay, so those are some of the things.
And then you also did, you're going to receive the Mad Anthony Red Coat recognition. Yeah. But also at the Mad Anthony Children's Center, you did several of the rooms for the families when their children are getting care. Right. You wanted to make those like as if they were in your home too, right?
I like that, and we've done that. You know, we have a cause down in the Dominican Republic where they take girls that are at risk, and we did their dorms. Harry was a big part of that. I just like things to look nice. You know, I've been known to rearrange a hotel room when I'm staying there, just like move the sofa or straighten a lampshade walking through a lobby. It's just how I see things. And
well, it also is one of your mantras is you're observant and you pay attention.
I do. And that's where the lighting comes in. I like pretty lighting.
Well, lighting is everything.
It really is. And no, I don't know. So the hotel, I just felt there was a need for it, Sarah. I thought when people come into Fort Wayne, okay, we recruit them, or they come in for board meeting or whatever. And even when my girls got married a long time ago, so where are we going to put them? We have beautiful, you know, we have so much here. We have restaurants and beautiful homes, cost of living, schools, the park, now the park, the ballpark, everything. And then at the end of the day, you drop them at which is fine. There's nothing wrong with those. But I just wanted the final kind of bow in the package to be there. And it's been in my mind for some time, and then this was just the right time to do it.
So, okay, but talk about, I mean, did you knock on doors of hotel companies and say, "Hi, I'm Barbara Baekgaard."
That's what I want to do. Yeah. Actually, I didn't do a lot of that personally. My son-in-law did a lot of that, and so he narrowed it down to about 3 or 4 hoteliers, I guess you'd call them. Yes. And so then we went out and met a couple of them.
And you also, it's also you one of your ideas or sort of your way of living you talk about is, you know, you play to your strengths. So you also know what you didn't know. So like the hotel business, I mean, you don't know about running, I mean, you certainly know about how to treat people well. Mm-hmm. You know about customer service. You certainly know how to create a beautiful room and that where you exactly want the lamp, but you didn't know necessarily about the economics or how it works or all of that, or getting the real estate. Well, you know about real estate from the stores, but I mean, building it and.
Well, I did an inn down in Seaside, Florida. I will say that. So I had a little, that was only 9 rooms, but it was a beautiful inn. And then we ended up turning that over to another, well, actually they bought out as an individual. Again, it's one thing to design it, it's another thing to run it.
Right.
And that was not my
Right. Well, in most hotels, most people don't realize that a lot of the hotels, like the Ritz-Carltons, if they're not the Ritz-Carlton company, they have a management company that runs them.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of nuances to it.
Yeah.
But I think that you also, you know, what you point out in the book, and you have these sort of ways of thinking about what you do and stuff. And one of them also, I think, is you talk about, you know, sort of this ready, fire, aim, and sort of be bold. And what I also think is, you know, you're very bold in terms that you may not even realize why it all works. I think it really is all connected is because most people are very afraid of color. And most people are very afraid of wallpaper in their homes. And you immediately wallpaper and love color. So you already are overcoming and saying go for it and be bold and not worry.
And change it if you get tired of it.
And so I think that sort of, there's a lot of those undercurrent things that maybe you don't realize that you got from your parents, but you did because of that idea, or your mother not worrying about how her house looked versus what other people, it was what she liked. So I think that there's a lot of, undercurrents to it that really demonstrate why you do what you do, and how it translates into not only the building of the businesses, but how you believe in running those businesses.
Yeah, I just think, and what feels right for you, what works for me doesn't work for everyone, and I have an appreciation for that. My dad's mantra was always, you sell yourself first, your company second, and your product third. The product, like you think of VERA bags, there are millions of bags out there. They do not have to carry our bag, right? So you build the relationships, and I saw this with our sales reps and everything. Our sales reps are friends with their customers and the store owners. So half of them stay with them when they're traveling. So you build that relationship, and then the company has to follow through and back it up and ship. If you want something in 24 hours, they have to get out the door, And then it's the product.
The product has to be able to survive and be good quality. So talk about how you build a relationship. Talk about with you and Pat and Leroy, who tell that story about the Tavern on the Green.
Oh, when we met Kay Leroy.
And but talk about that and how
that was a funny story. I have to reread my book. Some of those. We were at the New York Gift Show, a little tiny booth. We were not very big. And
this was you were just after you started, right?
Yeah, it was.
It was like in the late 80s.
Yes, it was. And this woman comes in, and no jewelry, dressed in black, typical New York, hair pulled back, nothing that stood out, and starts asking about our product and all that. And so she said, I'd be anxious to buy some of this for our gift shop at Tavern on the Green restaurant. I don't even know if she said Tavern on the Green at the time. At my restaurant, let's say that.
And Tavern on the Green, let's just put it in perspective. At that time, it was in its heyday.
Oh my God!
It was the restaurant in Central Park. I mean, you had to make a reservation a year in advance.
Big deal.
I mean, it was big. It was like one of the biggest restaurants. Okay.
It was.
Yeah.
And so we were leaving that day after the show, so we said, well, we'll be back in a couple weeks. We'll meet with you. Okay, fine. Well, let's meet at the restaurant. So Pat and I go, we're like, wow, Tavern on the Green. And we're in a little separate room, and we're talking to her, and we think she's the buyer for the gift shop, but treating her like she were the owner, right? Okay, so there's a commotion, and she leaves the room. And no, Pat went to the restroom, I think. And then I said, how long have you been with him? She said, well, actually, I'm Kay Leroy. I own it. I'm like, oh my God. Now, Pat comes back from the restroom, but doesn't know. So then there's a commotion. Kay leaves. And I said to Pat, do you know who she is? And she said, no. I said, it's Kay Leroy, Warner Leroy's wife, So anyway, we formed a great friendship. They lived in the Dakota. And we met Yoko Ono and everyone you could possibly meet. We'd go there for a dinner party, and we were like the only ones in the room that you didn't recognize. And it was developed into a very, very nice friendship. Yeah.
But it also says that, you treat her, you don't know who you're going to meet or who.
And we developed a product
exclusive.
With her, exclusive for Tavern on the Green. So all these little stories, well, it's the same as the earring story in there about the little girl.
So tell this story. Yeah, I don't know this story.
I don't know how I missed that. So when we started, we took a booth in the Chicago Gift Show because my dad had been a salesman in the cannabis, and I knew about it. So I called to get into the Chicago Gift Show, and they said, no, you belong in the apparel shows. We don't sell handbags. I said, well, a handbag could be a gift. Finally, I think to shut me up, he said, okay, we'll give her a booth. Last booth, last aisle, last row, basement of McCormick Place next to the water cooler. I mean, you couldn't find us with a map. You couldn't find us. And there was no category for us either. So I'm down there. I don't know where Pat was, probably back writing orders or something. And next to my booth was someone that sold magnet things like butterflies you put on your trailer and all. But one of the things they had were little magnet earrings. It looked like your ears were pierced, but you put a magnet back there. So I became friends, of course, with the magnet people. And they gave me a pair of those earrings. I thought it'd be hilarious to put on one of my sons and have him walk in and his dad would drop dead at that point, but he didn't. So anyway, there was a party that night for exhibitors. And I thought, well, I'll go to the party. I don't know anyone. So I go to the party. There are 1,500 people, 2,000 people on the top of McCormick Place. And there's a little girl, the only child running around, a little Asian girl. I say this for a reason. A little darling little girl all dressed up. And I start talking to her. And I showed her the earrings. I said, you want to see something really funny? And so I put the earrings on her, and she was 6 years old. So she went, she said, can I show my mother? I said, yes. So she went and showed her mother.
And she probably loved it because she got
oh
earrings,
my gosh.
right?
So anyway, the mother comes over to me and she said, oh, she got such a kick out of it. Her name was Yi. And she said, who are you sitting with? I said, I'm not sitting with anyone. Well, come sit with us. So now I'm at a round table, and I'm sitting with Yi and Thea, the little girl, and the program starts, and the head of the whole Chicago gift show stands up, and Yi says, shh, Daddy's speaking now. I am at the main table with Will Little, who's the head of the entire gift show, and then he comes and joins us. So the very next day, he came down to see our booth, and he said, we gotta get you out of here. Next show, upstairs, main aisle, and then he nominated me to the board. I was the first female on the board, and I ended up marrying the president of the board of directors of that board.
That's how you met your peer.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, the little earrings, the people next to me, I mean, it's just, my kids call them God winks, you know. But, I mean, it's just, how could you ever make that up? And, by the way, and the reason I mentioned her being Asian, I couldn't have put it together like, oh, I wonder if that's Will Little's daughter, because he's not Asian.
Right.
You know, there was no way I would have ever connected the fact that she was anyone in the room other than a darling little girl. That's the story. Isn't that funny?
It is funny. But do you also think that, you say that they're God winks, but do you believe that, you know, they say that opportunity is when preparation meets luck. How much do you think of your success is based on luck versus your perseverance and?
Well, I think some of it is luck. I think that I am a very lucky person. One time I was in Paris with some business people, and a man came up to me. He was Chinese, by the way, and he stopped me and pulled me out of these three of us. And he said, you have a very lucky face. And he just stared at my face. And Kim Colby was with me, and I forget who else. And they're like, whoa, what's going on here? Well-dressed man, suit, tie, the whole thing. And he said, and he looked at my face and he said, you are very lucky. Weird. And then another thing happened. Again, Chinese. I think it must be Chinese somewhere back in my first life. But a woman told me that, I guess in the Chinese culture, anything that's a circle, completes, is lucky. So she went through, she knew me, not very well, but she said, oh my God, when I look at you're a B, I've been all Bs, all connected, Barbara Bradley, Barbara Byrne Bradley, Baekgaard. My birthday is 3639. They all are circular. She took it back to all these different things in my life. And she said, I cannot tell you how lucky you are. I go, so maybe I am just lucky. So maybe it's all luck. I don't know.
Well, I think there has to be. They say it's preparation too.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's different stages in life. There's the learn, earn, return. And like, even though you're still earning, you're returning in the sense of you giving the Bradley Hotel to Fort Wayne, and obviously your work through the breast cancer foundation. And so, but, and as you look at sort of where you are in your life, and like I said, you have a very long time, but you're starting to look back at that. What advice would you give to your younger self?
I wouldn't change a whole lot. Even things that, like my first marriage didn't work out, but I have 4 children that I wouldn't have had if I had. I very seldom look back with regret. I really do. I can't think of anything that I can absolutely say I would change.
But what advice would you give? Like you do
what
say,
advice would
like
it tell me?
You do give advice to other people. You say slip up from time to time.
Oh, right,
and
right,
you
right.
say it's good to be a girl.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, in terms of like would you say to yourself, it's all going to work out, or I mean, did you think truthfully? I mean, I didn't know growing up in Miami Beach, Florida, that I would ever be living in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Well, definitely
So, I mean, but do you want to say to yourself, that 20-year-old Barbara, just don't worry, just go for it, or what, the 21-year-old graduating college? I mean,
Yeah.
Is there any advice that you would have, or that you would want to share with young people today?
I would just say follow your passion and follow your dream and do what you love and surround yourself with people you like. I have spoken at colleges, and I've said, when you're interviewing for a job, walk through the company and see what the atmosphere is. Do people look up from their desk
Right,
and say hi?
right. That's what I tell students when they're going to look at colleges.
Yeah,
Go
exactly.
see, do the students walk around with smiles on their
Yes,
faces, or are they
yes,
all
yes,
downtrodden?
yes.
Yeah,
How
you
do
want
they-
to, and you want to also, it's not just you're selling yourself to that company, but that company has to sell itself to you.
Absolutely, and ask the right questions. That's right. I don't know, I don't overthink very much.
Well, that goes back to that, right? That goes back to that ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
Tell me what that is. That, I think, is the perfect
Well,
mantra.
because I just do it. Okay, take the golf classic, for example. Pat and I didn't, we could have said, okay, we're going to start a golf tournament. Now let's go to some and see how it's done, and let's figure it out. And we just start a golf tournament. And I always think of it as the dinner party thing. If you decide to have a dinner party, just invite everybody, and then you have to do it. You know what I mean? They've been invited. Then you have to figure out the food, all that stuff. But just know, it's almost like you don't have a way out, And I think it's that way when you make a decision. We're going to start a golf tournament. Okay, now what do we do, And the same with the hotel. Just, build it and they will come. And I think that's the fun of it. I built multiple homes. I've built so many homes. I love it. I like the whole process of the building. My son and his daughter and his wife were building a home on Hamilton Road. I think I was there more than they were because I just like watching it go up and, the plumbing's going in or the wall went up, I get very involved with that.
And so as you think that Vera Bradley is going to be celebrating 40 years next year. And so,
can't believe it.
What do you think about that? And then what's next for you?
I was asked that yesterday at the town hall meeting. I don't know. I've just, I like travel, but not for travel's sake. I like to have, I have a place in New York. I like being there because there's something to do. I'm a big Broadway fan. I have a lot of friends in the industry on Broadway. I can't sit very long. We go to Seaside, Florida, which is nice. About 3 days. Okay, I'll tell you the difference between being in New York and being in Florida, Seaside. New York, I always think, oh my gosh, I only have 1 day left. I need 1 day more. Florida, I'm like, I have 3 days left.
Right.
What am I going to do? I'm not great at sitting. I think as you get older, you don't need all that sun. God knows I've had enough of that. The kids, it used to be a lot involvement with, not babysitting wise, but I mean just the kids, because when we'd be in Florida, there'd be a bunch of kids. Now they're in their own lives. I have my first great-grandchild.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So that's exciting. I don't have, I'm really a 1 day at a time person. And, I spoke, not recently, a couple years ago with Kristen Chenoweth, who, Broadway. And it was the cutest. I loved her because her whole speech, her whole talk was about a fork in the road. And she said, my fork in the road started at birth. I was adopted. And then she went on to tell, if this hadn't happened, this wouldn't have happened, this wouldn't. And I said, my life is kind of like that. If we hadn't moved to Florida, who knows? If I hadn't moved to Fort Wayne, if I had moved on that street and met Pat Miller, if we hadn't gone down to my mother's birthday, that particular airport, flight delay, it's all this, you know, I think it's kind of neat to wait for these things to more or less. So when you say what's in the future, I'm sure there'll be something because I'm not going to sit around. And it's just, I don't know, it's exciting to me. And I'm always open to opportunities. You know, I would build another hotel, I don't know where, but it was fun. I loved it.
And now you get to be, it's like you really get to be the grand dame or the matriarch of the hotel. Like you could be the greeter.
I'm Leona Helmsley.
Right. Well, no, but all the good things, not the.
I don't want to go to jail.
Right.
No.
She was the queen of mean. You would be.
She was.
You would be the queen of kind.
And you know what? That's why she went to jail, because no one had her back.
That's right.
Because she was mean.
That's right.
I will not go to jail. I guarantee.
I guarantee. Yeah, I would say that. But that goes back full circle to the whole idea.
It's who you are.
Of being kind.
It's who you are.
Right.
It really is.
And the idea.
You know, I saw that. This is an interesting thing, too, with my husband going through Alzheimer's. I think you become, in your old age or in a sickness, God forbid, something like that, you become who you really are. Some people get kinder and nicer.
Yes.
Some people get arrogant.
Yes.
And mean.
Yes, absolutely. I believe that. I believe that as you get older, the things about your personality that were most not come out. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you turn out to be a grumpy old man, well, you were hiding that all those years.
Right, exactly. Or maybe you were really a grumpy
and maybe
person.
So.
Now you're just grumpier.
Yeah. But I think, like in the case of my mother, she died suddenly, a result of an automobile accident, and she never reached a point of, well, she was my age when she died, but she was vibrant and alive and just great. She never had to have any special care. Mm-hmm. So in a way, again, looking back, like I said, even on that, would I wish to have lived 10 more years? Yeah. But it was a gift. And then when my husband, Pierre, died, I remember the doctor down at IU called and he said, you gave him the greatest gift. You let him die first. I love that. Mm-hmm. I love that because it is true. I think women survive and go on easier.
No, I
than
see
men.
that. No, I see that with my father.
Do you?
Yeah, my mom passed away 5 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
And it's been very difficult. It's also because what he did was work. But I think you're making kindness contagious. So I vote for that.
Okay.
And at the end of each And Good Company program, I ask guests the same 12 questions that French novelist Marcel Proust popularized from a Victorian parlor game. What is your favorite word?
Oh my. Oh, now this is going to be hard. What is my favorite word? I'd have to say love, probably.
What is your least favorite word?
Hate. I never use it. We say Hitler or the devil. Only 2 times you can use the word hate. Right. I taught my kids
my mother always said you could use the word detest, greatly, but you cannot use hate.
Never use hate. Yes. I would have loved your mother.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Color, vibrance, color, flowers, anything bright.
What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Boring, just boredom. Even in college, if I didn't like the professor, if I was bored, they lost me. I was not an A student, believe me. But if I had a great professor and I liked
you were there.
Yeah.
What sound or noise do you love?
What's that?
Sound or noise do you love?
Music. I'm a huge music.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Sirens.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Real estate agent.
What profession other would you not like to attempt?
Anything medical.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
Well, one of them would be, well, other than my 4 kids, I gotta say that, I guess. Yeah. But I would say the culture of Vera Bradley. yes, what we stand for as a company.
Who, living or dead, would you most like to have a conversation with?
I go back to my mother.
How would you like to die?
Okay, that's a good way. Well, I'll say one thing. I can put it in a sentence. I'd rather drop dead of a heart attack in New York City than die in an assisted living home anywhere else being taken care of.
Okay.
So maybe walking out of a Broadway show.
And getting hit by the bus.
Yeah. Maybe so.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Pier's up here waiting for you.
I thought maybe it would be, we have a couple of rooms that need to be done. Some clouds that need some added color.
Yeah, wait a minute. Right? Yeah, let's put some color in this place.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank Barbara Bradley Baekgaard, co-founder of VERA Bradley and the creator of the New Bradley Hotel, for having a seat at our table.
Thank you.
And to learn more about And Good Company and all the other great conversations we have had, you can go to andgoodcompany.info. And we look forward to next week, when you can again enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company.